In 325 AD, the Emperor Constantine called together the Council of Nicaea to establish a unified Catholic Church. At that point, no universally sanctioned scriptures or Christian Bible existed. Various churches and officials adopted different texts and gospels. That's why the Council of Hippo sanctioned 27 books for the New Testament in 393 AD. 4 years later, the Council of Carthage confirmed the same 27 books as the authoritative scriptures of the Church. The Church discouraged the populace from reading the Bible on their own, a policy that intensified through the Middle Ages and later with the addition of a prohibition forbidding translation of the Bible into native languages. Any violation of these decrees resulted in imprisonment and a terrible death. The Catholic Church reached the British Isles as early as the late 2nd century. For the next 1,000 years, missionaries and teachers translated bits and pieces of the Bible into the language of the people for teaching purposes, but there was no concerted effort to translate the whole Bible. Latin was the language of the Church, and the few whole Bibles that did exist were handwritten in Latin and would have been inaccessible to the average person, even if they could read. Later, John Wycliffe, an English scholastic philosopher, theologian, biblical translator, reformer, priest, and a seminary professor at the University of Oxford, became an influential dissident within the Catholic priesthood during the 14th century and is considered an important predecessor to Protestantism. Wycliffe challenged the Church's right to money that it demanded from England. When the Great Schism between the Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church began, he publicly questioned the Pope's authority. He also attacked indulgences and immoral behavior on the part of the clergy. During the Middle Ages, church officials tried to control interpretations of the Bible. Wycliffe believed that the Bible, not the Church, was the supreme source of religious authority. Against church tradition, he had the Bible translated from Latin into English so that the common people could read it. His Middle English translation was of the Latin Vulgate, the official Bible of the Church. After Wycliffe's death, some of his associates revised the translation and were condemned by the Church and burned at the stake for their efforts. Tensions between the Church and the English monarchy reached a breaking point when King Henry VIII said he wanted to separate from the Roman Catholic Church and start the Church of England. He also wanted an annulment of his marriage to Catherine of Aragon. Sir Thomas More was an English lawyer, social philosopher, author, statesman, and noted Renaissance humanist. He was a dedicated Catholic, having at one time considered becoming a monk, but got married instead. He believed that any change to the Church should come from the Church, period. He was also the Chancellor to Henry VIII and Lord High Chancellor of England. More opposed and denied Henry VIII's separation from the Catholic Church and refused to acknowledge Henry as supreme head of the Church of England. Finally, Thomas More denied the annulment of his marriage to Catherine of Aragon. That pretty much did it. After refusing to take the oath of supremacy, Thomas More was convicted of treason and executed July 6, 1535. And on November 3, 1534, King Henry VIII became the head of the newly founded Church of England. Eventually, the Roman Catholic Church had surrendered to the inevitability of an English translation of the Bible, so a new translation favorable to Catholic doctrine was produced. This was called the Douay-Rheims translation, after the two cities where the majority of work on it was conducted. With all the notes in Bible translations and the production of a Catholic version that at times was more concerned about preserving Catholic teaching than providing an accurate rendering of the text, there arose a need for a Bible translation that would be universally recognized in the English-speaking world for its scholarship, accuracy, literary beauty, and readability without partisan explanatory notes. This translation was sanctioned by King James I, who ascended to the throne of England after Elizabeth's death in March 1603. King James appointed about 50 leading scholars, both Anglican and Puritan, to produce the new translation. Translators used the best available Hebrew and Greek manuscripts and considered previous translations as well. They worked in small teams to produce translations of smaller portions, and then their work was scrutinized by other teams. The result was the authorized version of 1611, known today as the King James Version. This was to be the Bible of the English-speaking world for the next 250 years and is still one of the most popular Bible translations read today.